With Dave and Mecky, so I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hello and welcome to Trendy Set Up with
Dave
and Mecky on WZZ. Yeah, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com and revolution.radio, where it's more than just radio. So jump in the chat room if you can. We're there now. It's awesome. Show number 446, 640 and 400. That's right. Not that much to go to 500. It's just crazy talk. We're going to talk about physical, biological artifacts. We've been continuing the show arc. Probably another couple shows and we're done with it. It's on air, online, and on your smart device. The devices are getting smarter, watch out. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you missed Solaris' show, shame on you, shame on me. I have an excuse, you probably don't, but I have. And today she talked to Steve Colburn. And they talked about alien implants, politics, the whole gamut. It was an awesome show, I am sure. However, and the moon. Oh, man, I'm cut that I missed it. But look, if you did miss it, and if you miss any show on this station, there's actually an archive available, the Freedom Slips archive, and for a measly $5 or thereabouts per month, you can access all of that content, because that's what it's called now, Dave. It's all content. It's no longer stuff. It's content. And yeah, it's all yours for $5 measly a month. And you can check out her shows. She's an awesome presenter, fantastic host and interviewer. And an even better interviewee, as we found out when we had the pleasure of having her on our show. I really like her. And I also really like the things she's doing, her research, her books, her videos. It's all out there on Amazon. If you want it, go and buy it. Well, before we start, though, on a somber note, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here in Australia, where I live. For me, it's the Darug people, and for Dave,
it's the Darkajung.
Thank you, sir. And we would like to pay our respects to elders, past, present, and future. And yes, no, Solaris is quite a researcher, and I guess not just a researcher, but certainly a person that has lived through a whole bunch of stuff. If you want to know what that means, I urge you to go ahead and look at her work, her books, her videos, documentaries, etc. It's really interesting stuff. And we're lucky enough to have the chance to talk to her a number of times. So that's brilliant stuff. It's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy week. It's just when you think
it's like a 1920s newsreel sound.
I know, right? But just when you think 2020 has got nothing, and then boom, here's the October surprise, bam, whammy. You know, I mean, like Dave put a whole bunch of stuff together. We're going to try to cover it here in the first hour. COVID-19. We're going to talk about explosions and fires in China, bank runs in China, Chinese simulated attack in Guam, USA election talk, and Trump's. The Trumps, in fact, they have the coronavirus. That's right. Look, no matter what else, I wish him well. I hope he and Melania get out of it soon. It's not something to joke about now. I'm talking to a lot of my doctor friends, Dave, about the long COVID effects.
Yeah.
In fact, I went to my dentist the other day, and smart fellow. We had a bit of a chat, and he goes, yeah, long COVID is nothing to joke about. And wherever you go now, I guess when you see a doctor, I take my girls to the doctor. I go to the dentist, like I said. Everybody's wearing masks. You're going to wear a mask when you go there. Now, for the dentist, of course, I have to take the mask off. Otherwise, there's very little happening in the way of treatment for me.
We guess your teeth are great.
No, we think you're doing okay. At least we can't smell your breath. That's
it.
The bonus.
But you have to smell your own breath with the mask on.
And for me, it's funny. I mean, I've got sinus issues at the best of times. And I found that if I wear a mask for prolonged periods of time, my sinus is clear. I mean, I get really I guess hay feverish symptoms.
Yeah, right.
Wearing a mask too long and I sneeze and I blow my nose, but then it clears up a bit. So I don't know if any of you have a similar experience there. I do wear masks, and I wear masks simply because in my family, people are undergoing cancer treatment. Like I said, I don't know if Dave shared this with you, but my baby son was born last Friday, not the Friday past, Friday the 25th of September. Akira Maximilian, his name is. Akira Maximilian, how about that? That's the name. So that's why I wasn't here last Sunday. So I do apologize. I'm sure my esteemed colleague, in fact, I know my esteemed colleague, held the fort. He didn't just hold the fort. He built a whole new fort on a whole new mountain. That's what he did. And that's brilliant stuff. So, but yeah.
Had a great roundtable, Mickey, last week. 2-hour roundtable. It's great.
I love it.
Yeah.
These are great things. And look, that's why I wear a mask, because there are people in high risk categories, and I'm just not willing to take a chance. I'm just not, you know, and I know, Dave, you're in a similar situation where it's just not worth taking a chance.
Yeah, like you, my daughter has a heart condition, and her treating team is a team, and they said that she cannot get it. They didn't say, oh, that might be bad. They just said, let's just try avoidance entirely, right?
Yeah. And look, again, you know, you can do what you want, and I'm not going to go into the argument like I do none of the weeks. We're not going into the argument of whether there's a disease out there. I think we're seeing whatever's out there. It's having an effect on people. It's having an effect on the world stage, Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just. I predict end of October, and I stick by it, that India will have overtaken the United States with most cases.
I was going to throw the graph up, Mickey. On the graph, you can see that India is just almost going vertical on this, and they're going to catch them really, really soon.
Yeah, like India, 90,000, 100,000, 70,000, and then the US, 30,000, 40,000, so half of India's gain.
That's right.
You know, and I don't believe the mortality figures one moment. You know, I remember when we hit 1 million just not too long ago. Only 40,000 above that. It's 1,037,000. It goes ballistic here. And so forget the virus though itself. The impact that it has, and we're going to Dave put some really great news items here together. It's the economic impact. It's the impact on travel. It's the impact on our lives. The fear that it's sowing. I believe that the awareness cascade has been successfully stymied. That's probably the best word. It has been successfully stopped. It is not going to go ahead. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I urge you to go back to our full 100 show numbers, like 100, 200, 400, 300, etc. And you will find out what we mean by the hypothesis and the awareness cascade. But I believe, Dave, I will say this now officially in the air, I believe it has been successfely stopped. I do understand there's an event at the end of the year. Do you know? I think it's in Uluru, right?
That's correct.
That is meant to, in fact, it's very interesting because for all intents and purposes, to me, it sounds like an awareness cascade, or at least trying to get something like that going.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yeah.
It's amazing, Dave, how the hypothesis and our dates have lined up.
They lined up perfectly.
It's just nuts. And who's listening to us? Actually, I mean, of course, you are our esteemed listenership, but I don't know how many people are listening out there to this show, but. As far as predictive prowess is concerned, and not that we're not prophets, far from it, but we haven't been far wrong on a whole bunch of things. In fact, I don't think I
nearly live alone in a cave on a hill, Mickey.
I know, and I've got a beard, so that's all good.
Close.
But together we are we are the Unabomber. No, that's
no
wrong. We're not. No, but
912
though. testing prank call. It's can we do that again? No, it's certainly saying a lot to the strength of the hypothesis that was developed over decades, I have to say here, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I do urge you to listen to our expose on it. Things are yet to happen, and if you want to know how to get out of this place, I mean, escape this particular reality matrix, the hypothesis might be able to help you there as well. Okay, we have had a few things along the way, some epiphanies, and the ultimate question, though, as to the why. I mean, we know some of the whys along the way, but every why that you answer, Dave, as you well know, leads to another why.
Right? That's right.
And I mean, I'll give you a simple example. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out why we are being kept here. Then quantum mechanics came along and helped me. And well, you need an observer. I know a lot of scientists jumping up and down. Mac, you don't understand quantum mechanics at all. Blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe you don't understand it. In fact, I don't think anybody understands it, to be clear, right? And I do believe that a consciousness is required, okay, in order for reality to exist. That's what I'm taking away from. Yeah, that's what I'm taking away from quantum mechanics. If you disagree with me, if you think, you're just a nutbag, that's all good. It's fine. I think that's what it is, and I think that's why we are here, because we are required for this reality to exist.
And look, it's not just, we're not just making this up. Physicists all around the world, quantum theorists all around the world have come to the decision or the idea, independently of each other, including us, but we're not qualified scientists, just saying that we live in a simulation. That is how removed, just on an aside here, just how removed the physics is in the quantum world from reality. And just by watching something changes it. Like, and I've used this before, Mickey, but it'll make sense. When you're playing a video game, nothing is rendered except for what you're looking at on your screen, right? The computer knows where everything else is, but it's not rendered. It doesn't have to show you if you're not looking at it. And this is exactly what we find in the quantum world, where we try to, we have an equation. It's a probability equation that says the thing would be here if we looked, and then when we look, we found it. But it was in there somewhere, and that's all we knew. It wasn't like we could say exactly where it was going to be. And if we don't look, it hasn't materialized being any of those things. In fact, it goes a step further. It does whatever it wants to do, like it's just a wave, like everything, not string. Mackie, imagine the entire universe is just a mixture of waves until you look, and then it becomes a thing, a particle, something you can touch, and it happens to have a position because you look at it. That's how crazy it is. Back to you in the studio, Mickey.
Oh, sorry, I was actually talking. Sorry, man. But I completely agree. That's exactly what it is. The very act of observation, right? And I want to be very clear here, right? It is the observation that does it, right? Because it's Schrödinger's cat all over. We don't know what happens until we open the box. And the act of opening the box in the Schrödinger example, that's the observation. That's when the observation happens, because we don't know. So what that means is, David Thompson, everything is just a wave, and a wave is really just an expression of a probability. Okay, so anything is possible. Okay, anything is possible, right? How probable is it? That's the question, right? And these probability waves, all for everything, they collapse as soon as you look at them. That's what we found out. And I'm simplifying by saying look at them. Of course, it's not as simple as just looking at them. You have an experiment, you observe it through instruments, and the observational data is then taken. And the thing is this: if you don't observe it, meaning you don't put the measuring instruments in the experiment, the experiment has a different outcome.
That's right.
Every time. Okay,
you can look at the outcome change
every time
without looking at where the thing went as it's causing the outcome. The moment you're trying to find where it went, the outcome changes. What happened there?
And that puts paid to cause and effect. It's pretty much like, cause and effect, good lie. Nice to know you. Mickey,
cause and effect is irrelevant of time. It's disconnected from time. Time is no longer a factor as cause and effect being linear. It isn't linear. It can go forward and backward in time.
Correct. And I think I said it before, and I'll say it one more time, and then I do want to get into the news.
I'm sorry.
I think no.
Don't get us going on quantum theory.
But this is important stuff, and I'm sure people want to hear about it as well, right? It's really critical to understand that time, as we perceive it, doesn't actually exist. Time per se is not a thing. It's an illusion, right? So we are somewhat hampered by our perception. I mean, we can perceive a certain way, and we seem to move through time, right? One instant at a time, as it were, right?
That's right. Leads to another, yeah.
Yeah, or at least that's the way it appears to us. Whereas mathematics and physics, all the time is completely irrelevant. It can move this way, that way. I don't care which time flows. And so time in itself, it might very well be an illusion. But our mind, our consciousness, our brain, as it were, I think it's our brain, our physical brain that puts limitation on what we can perceive and what we can't perceive, as well as our sensory input devices, eyes, ears, etc. And we just can't conceive of something else. But what if everything didn't have a timestamp, Dave? What if time is just not there and everything just happens at the same time, as it were? Of course, not at the same time, though, and it's a completely different concept. It's something we can't actually conceptualize. What I'm talking about right now is like
time in a box.
Yeah,
the whole universe and all its time is in a box.
Yeah, you can conceptualize it, but you can't fully understand it. It's like when I say infinite or eternity. Those terms mean nothing. We can talk about them all day long, but you can't actually really understand what infinity means, and you can't really understand what eternity means. You can't.
And I dare say that I'm not going to bring up the Mayfly as an example, but if you've heard us talk about it, the mayfly to us can't understand it in infinity or eternity, but we can more than the mayfly, if that makes sense. It's only scales. It's only a reasonably expected that we don't know as much as someone. Say you could live 20,000 years, 100,000 years. You'd have a greater view of what eternity would mean, but still no clue.
No, exactly.
There's nothing to scale against.
But that's exactly and that's exactly what's happening. And I believe that is our physical form here, our gross material, as the Gnostics call the bodies that are limited in this perception. Our true selves, our higher selves, I think, understand very well how it all hangs together. And I had an experience when I was very young where it's hard to explain. I explained it to you, Dave.
It's like you and your uncle in the boat shed in summer. Yeah, I remember that. I had sort of an epiphany just then. Could you imagine if all of time and everything that we imagine is in that Einstein box, right? All of time, from the Big Bang to the next time it all does whatever it wants to do next, right? Could you imagine if that entire thing was only a single instance?
But that's exactly right. I think and that's how you have to look at it.
Simultaneously, it's all at the same time. However, our lives are so micro viewed on this time that single instance, for us, we have to live a linear path through it. And that was what Einstein was trying to talk about.
And that's and it's different from wherever you look at it. The perception of that length of experience will be different, right? And that's really the crux of relativity. So it all ultimately depends on your point of view. Relativity, in its I'm grossly oversimplifying, but relativity depends on your point of view.
That was the first thing to bring the observer into.
Yeah. Quantum
because of
mechanics.
Time. Yes.
Yeah, quantum mechanics depends on your point of view. On your view. So if there's any unifying principle between relativity and quantum mechanics, it's that they both depend on your point of view. Mm-hmm. In the literal sense of the word.
Yeah, because relativity and special relativity for that matter had you traveling and length changing to the observer, not you, and time changing to the observer, not you. In your sphere, you always remained the same, which is unusual. Because in the quantum world, the thing changes, not the observer. It's completely different. The observer doesn't. They don't see something different. What happens is it changes to reflect the want of expectation of the observer. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It is completely.
But it is. No, let's talk about. I mean, you took a lot of effort to put the news together.
Yep.
Let's at least glance at them.
You're right. So look, I've had the graphs up that I've shown for a long time. I'm building them every single day. I type all the numbers in, and the current CFR Meki is down to 4.1. That's current, given the numbers that are confirmed numbers. That's it. Yeah. That's all I'll mention. Yeah. Take them for what you think they are, but this is it. There was a massive spike in the number of total infections, up to 64,000 from an average of about 35 just a couple of days ago, but that might have just been a blip where they hadn't included them for a while and then they threw them all at once. Also, the standout here, Meki, remains that the United Kingdom is back in the top 12.
Yeah, I know.
And its recovered numbers, they stopped counting recovered. They don't determine. They've stopped determining that people are recovered from the coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2 back in May. Right. Since then, they haven't increased them. They're not really saying, because they think there's a long-term thing that we've not discovered yet, and they're holding off. They're being a little, cautious.
And that's really the critical thing to understand. And it was actually, I think it's a deliberate thing where we talked about long COVID earlier. We just don't know what recovered means. That's it. It's that simple. No. It's a little scary, Dave.
Yeah, well, the thing about the numbers right now, while the world's going, 300,000 plus per day, it's going up in infections. The profile of those people becoming infected is younger and younger and younger. Yeah. So now that the younger people, rather than the older people who had generated CFR of like 70% when it first broke, because our lives were all about, the elderly and having contact with people and spreading it, and it was getting to those who were most susceptible. Now we've sort of isolated them away, and the people who are becoming infected are just more likely to be either asymptomatic or able to counter it really quickly, and it moves on. So the infection rate's going up, the age profile is going down. Therefore, we're not going to see the amount of deaths increase with this huge outbreak of the younger people. And I think it's going to change the way we see the virus, and I think total elimination is still just crazy talk. I think it's a nice to have, but Mekki, in Australia, just to let everyone know, in Australia, that they're testing wastewater. So they're testing wastewater facilities in each of the cities around Australia and looking for the not COVID-19, that's a disease that present a symptom. They're looking for the actual bacteria. So the virus. And when they find the virus, then they're starting to test the town. So messaging gets out because they're finding that they think, Mekki, there might be between 60 and 80,000 people in Australia that are asymptomatic entirely. That had the virus and never tested. Yep.
And wouldn't be tested because they didn't feel sick.
That's right. So that's why they're looking at wastewater now, because the people's own determination whether they're sick or not may not show it and they've found a town that has a lot of it, and they're moving in and they're going to test everyone and see what they can find. So because it does come out of your feces, like it's there, and it's a bit of a worry.
Oh, absolutely, right? Absolutely. It's we don't even know how long it's been around either. There's a whole bunch of I was reading New Scientist this week, and we don't know. When it first came around, we don't know. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that are saying, "Oh no, we can." The headline reads, "Oh, we've disproven this and we've disproven that," and then the actual article reads, "Well, we're not entirely sure, but we think," which is much more honest, but it doesn't really make a good headline, right? So it certainly is
clickbait equivalent.
Well, it is in a way, except this is a magazine, right?
Yeah, so, that's what I mean, right? So,
but look, it's I don't know.
There was Huawei. Just want to say this. Huawei mentioned that they'd were running a loss for the quarter already, and I think it got to 30 million, which isn't very much. I mean, really, it's not much. And then 2 weeks later, their factory in China, along with a lot of other depots and facilities, over separate days in the last 2 weeks, Mekki, have just exploded. And fires, and so there's a research lab. This is a technology research lab, for I think 5G lab for Huawei. Unfortunately, it's been reported that 3 people were killed in an explosion at the lab. There is a video of a massive fire on the screen. I'm not going to play them, but they're there, and I'm going to circle with my mouse. So if you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, subscribe to YouTube. Just please subscribe. Everyone subscribe. And so it's pretty bad. So the local officials said there was nothing wrong, no one was hurt, there was no fire. But then the video of it broke, and then they sort of caved and talked about it. So I think that's I'm concerned that any loss of life, I don't like that at all. And but it sort of shows how I think not to lose face, to always talk positively about things. It's very hard to deliver a message that says, well, I'm joking around here, but Huawei have decided to renovate their building after a small incident, which is going to make it better.
Ooh.
That would be the kind of message I would expect to see, but look, sadly, we'll have to see what happens as word comes out a bit later on. But Mekki, I wanted to talk about the bank runs, because this was an extremely important thing, and it shows just how fragile all of our banking systems are. And I know, Mackie, you love this component that we're about to talk about. So a bank run is simply when enough people fear that the bank is going to go under, that the amount of money that they hold is insufficient to pay out everyone's account balances. So if everyone were to seek to extract their money from a bank, they would no longer have enough funds to pay out, I don't know, maybe 10% is all they could achieve, or less, 5% of their capital. And that would be really bad for the rest of those people who had accounts in there. So in China, there was social media rumors that prompted a spate of bank runs in China. And it was 5 banks that were found. I'm not going to name the banks themselves, but I'll name the things that seem to lead towards it. And this is like, you know how there's good parts of social media and there's like gray area and then there's really bad things. Well, I think the fact that people could talk about it and spread the news led to a worsening of the bank runs, because that's natural cascade effect, which then they had to halt everything and then say, you know, change the messaging. We're actually okay. But this is what the things were. So the first bank that had a bank run, their stock price simply plummeted, giving visibility to the people who had their, you know, funds in there, and they lined up and, you know, out the door trying to take their money. The second one broke the capital chain, and the president went missing. You what? He just disappeared, completely disappeared. And that's really, really bad. Imagine the CEO of you know, the biggest, I don't know, Wells Fargo or something, right? Just suddenly up and goes. You don't know. Maybe he's kidnapped. Maybe he's been, you know, accidented. I don't know. But they broke the capital chain. Now I'm not quite sure exactly what that means, but it could be. Oh, we're not going to go by your standards anymore. Good luck with that. That wasn't very good. Then the other one, the third bank, was non-performing loan rate was on the rise. So there was a lot of defaults going on, and that prompted a bank run in that bank. The fourth bank, listed as a dishonest institution by court ruling. So we just had a royal commission here, and right in our country, and the top 4, the big 4, we call it here, the big 4, the top 4 banks. They were all shown to be doing really bad things, getting people in engaging them with contracts where they couldn't pay, or taking too many funds.
Charging dead people for services that were never delivered.
There you go.
That was my favorite. You charge dead people for a service you actually didn't deliver.
Yeah, there you go.
That's just nuts.
That's right. You know, I got a check, my first royalty check, and it was for 1 cent, and it was going to cost me $12 to deposit it. And I said, why? Oh, it's just processing. And I said, next time, earn more. You just put it, frame it, put it on the wall.
Cover your costs.
That's the first cent I earned, right? So a court ruled that bank in particular, that one, as it labelled it dishonest. Now, our banks had been labelled dishonest ages ago, and no one really cared. There was a class action, but, you know, it hasn't finished. And the last one, the fifth bank, the bank president was put under investigation. The revenue plummeted, and the bank's major shareholders were officially listed as dishonest persons. Like they're laundering money through this bank, right? And so I'm not saying that these are reasons why you should approach a bank and start taking all your money out, or advertise on social media. Of course, you shouldn't do that. But wow, Mackie, it changes the world, doesn't it? When social media can basically it can aid the collapse of any organization, even one that's profitable. Well, so-called profitable.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is true. And the construct, though, is untouched. So you look at, you know, how time moves along and what happened, and the basic construct of our civilization remains unchanged, even though we perceive these massive upheavals. The French Revolution, American Revolution, you know, now the bank runs, this, you know, credit crunches, financial crises, etc. But the structure of our society remains the same, insanely so.
Yeah.
It should change, but it doesn't. Like Noam Chomsky said, you can talk about whatever you like as long as it's inside this box.
Yeah.
Like in your box. So you're right, though, and the rules are changing as we're watching, but there's still rules that are pertaining to the box, and God forbid that you ever should try to break out.
There was a news story today, Mickey, that I saw that was what's his name, the head of Facebook? Oh,
Zuckerberg.
yeah, the android. Yep. So
Yeah. Data's child.
yeah, that's right. He looks like Data's love child. The one where he met his brother himself, and if they had a love child, it's definitely Mark Zuckerberg. He said that it's okay to wish that Trump dies as long as you don't tag him in it.
Hang on. I missed that.
From the coronavirus.
Serious? No, I get that. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah, because
cow.
if you wish that he dies, it's just a personal comment and no one's going to see it. But if you tag him in it, he can basically have you, because that's a death threat, pretty much, right? And they can delete your account. Don't try it. Don't take my advice. Just saying, look for the article, your news article yourself.
That's just nuts.
I don't think you should be wishing that kind of harm on anyone. And then look, if it's a democratically appointed leader, Mickey, just vote them out next time, right?
But you wouldn't say that.
I know.
That's not something you should say. You can think it. Think as much as you want, but you don't say it.
Until the thought police come along, Mickey.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that Hitler would put in a book. Oh, I just thought I'd write the book. If anybody had bothered to read his book, then none of World War II would have been surprised. But it's astounding that I had no idea that he said that. That just blew my mind.
Well, it could be misquoted and it could be fictitious, but at the moment,
I don't care.
I know, right? At the moment, I think it's gold.
Cool.
I'm trying to make some more room for it later on discussion, but the China simulated attack on Guam news story, where they released a video which looked like a produced movie.
Okay.
Where they nuked Guam, and there was a lot of pleasure to be had in such an action. Yeah. I'm not saying, and I'm not going to take any sides. I thought it was very interesting that it should come at this time. I'm not actively looking. I'm not searching for confirmation bias of this continued escalation of war stance. But there is definitely, from what I can see, a propaganda war, nonetheless, between the US and China, that it just seems to be getting worse. I don't care if they're only lobbing soft grenades over the fence, if you know what I mean. Bags of poop at each other. I don't really care. But when I watch something that looks orchestrated, and I think there's going to be a lot of three-letter agency analysts looking at it, going, that was pretty lame, right? Let's see where they took off from. Yeah, we know about that base. If they used any underground bases, man, they're going to be examining that, of each frame of that film. So there isn't a film of America nuking China. There just isn't one. So I thought that was a little extraordinary for them to come out with that. This came up in the debate. Becky, did you watch the debate?
I actually did watch the debate.
Yeah, I did.
The train wreck it was. It's a shame, though. I'll be honest with you. It's a shame that there's probably not going to be a second or third. And I mean this because I would have loved to. Because it could have only got better. It couldn't have got any worse.
It was a train wreck.
Oh yeah.
But there was a couple of things that came out from it. Number one, Trump, the Latino vote went up because they like a powerful leader, and talking over Biden all the time seemed to promote that idea. When Biden said, "Shut up, man," oh, that was gold.
Oh yeah.
I just shut up, man.
I think there's a person like Biden would get to the point where he's nothing if not collected, right?
Yeah.
And I go, okay, clearly he now has.
We pushed enough buttons for him to say that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And Trump also talked about winning that debate and checking all these things that Biden said wrong, but Biden had a microphone and audio device so he could hear a question in advance.
Yeah.
So that's come out too. The people have released photographs showing the wrist thing and the earpiece and whatever. So that's. You're not supposed to do that, right? Unless he had a coach telling him all the words and he was just like a puppet. Right? Who knows? But Trump said something really interesting in there about the postal votes. He said, solicited postal votes are fine. That's where the person, the registered voter, says, I can't make it on that date. Please send me a voting form. And you can imagine it's got a serial number on the form, and they fill it in. It's like almost pre-populated, and then they just they sign it off and they make their check marks and they post it back in the envelope, and done, cool. Or it's put in collection boxes or whatever. I don't care. But unsolicited, that's kind of bad, and it leads to this story. Now I've got this page up again. It's from the Washington Times, and it says the watchdog identifies 50,000 double voters in the last election, and 350 people that were registered dead who were still on the rolls who received voting papers by mail. Not only that, 8,000 of those people were credited with actually voting in the election despite being dead.
Clearly, this is evidence for the supernatural. No, it's not. No,
maybe they forwarded it in time, Mickey. That's what they did, right?
That's also not what happened now.
And so they voted and wrote a date that was listed past their deceased date. And then there was also about 38,000 people who voted twice in the same state, and 5,500 people who voted twice from different addresses within the same state. And then 8,000 who are credited in voting from two different states. Okay. So it's rife, and I think he's got a point to maybe with POTUS has the ability to change this, right? So that he could make it so that you could only vote once, or make it solicited, or do something.
See, the problem is these voting schemes and processes are administered on a state basis. There's no federal process or governing body for this. That's why you had the problem with the chits in Florida. Do you remember back in the day? There's some problems. I think it was Oregon.
Yeah.
So the problem is the voting processes, the voting machines, even right, and the way people vote. All of that is completely in state territory. So the president can't do anything there. Nothing. Zero.
Well, he can. I don't know. He can do something. What he can do is wish it happened.
This is rigged.
Yeah. Well, Mickey, if you and I were in his position, I'd be calling it out too.
Of course,
for sure.
But you would do it because it has always been a problem. Okay, it's not like all of a sudden there's a new problem. No, it's always been a problem. The American voting systems, and again in Florida, it went to the Supreme Court. If you remember.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so Bush Jr. and Al Gore, that's the one. They went to court because the Florida chits. I mean, imagine if Al Gore had been in the White House when September 11 came along. Just imagine that for a second. But so it's actually very, very important. It's a very important question. But clearly, nobody gives a hoot, or not enough at least, to fix it, because it isn't a problem today. It was a problem 20 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And then not specifically the mail vote, but I mean the whole voting system.
Oh yeah, no,
and
completely.
And the collegiate system.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't even. I mean, the people don't matter.
I know. You can vote for Donald Duck, Mickey. It doesn't matter.
No, it's completely pointless. You can go forward, but guess what? Ultimately, it only matters what the collegiate votes are.
That's right.
Okay, in the scheme of things, and that's where Trump won. I mean, so it's in Trump's favor, I guess, and then Hillary actually had the popular vote, believe it or not. I found that amazing. So I didn't think anybody would vote for her.
You hear them, Mickey. You hear them every single vote time. They go, well, we have to wait for the postal votes. And that's because they've got a warehouse
true.
full of pre-filled in postal votes, which can be submitted up to 3 days after the actual election has occurred. Isn't that crazy? Up to 3 days after. So it didn't go your way. Cool. Release the papers. Right?
It is a little crazy. It actually is a little crazy. But ultimately, though, and this is really something
Those
that
postal votes will fix it, sir.
There you go, that'll do it. It is something that has to change fundamentally in America. Now, the reason it was put in place, there are good reasons. I mean, it's interesting to look at the history of it, but there are good reasons for this to be in place. And what they tried to balance was popular states with less popular states. I mean, you've got vastly more people living in California and the Eastern Seaboard, in the I guess the original states there, than you have in the middle of the country. Okay, vastly more people, right? And so who should have more power to vote then is the question, right? But it became so imbalanced, the collegiate system, that it no longer truly reflects the people's vote. And the whole system is so convoluted that it really becomes difficult to feel engaged. And that's why, I think that's why quite a few people don't vote in America. Because they think, well, it doesn't really matter what I do, all right? I can do this, I can do that. My vote doesn't ultimately count. And they're not wrong in saying that. Yeah, they're not wrong in saying that. But there's some key states here, and this is really critical to understand. There's some key states in the United States, like Florida is one of them, right? And they're called swing states as well, that will decide the election. The other states, nobody gives a hoot about. Nobody cares. Look at the states that focus on election night. Those are the states that decide the eletion. And that's why the candidates go campaigning in those states. That's why they're door knockers. That's the only reason. Because it doesn't matter. The other states don't matter. And for the most part, unless there's like a landslide, every party thinks they've got them in their pocket as well, right? So it's a very convoluted, very complex, and it's also a system, especially with the debolt machines. I don't know if nobody's talking about that anymore,
hackable,
right? Yeah, completely hackable. In fact, you know what the problem is? Forget the hackability of them. You know what the actual problem is? There's no paper trail. It's completely inauditable.
On the machine, it's just ended up in numbers.
Yeah,
and I saw the guy who clicked on a pixel and swapped the numbers around. You seen that hack?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Mickey,
it's nuts.
This year, there's a great segue. This year is so crazy. So, and I've got a meme on the screen.
Crazy.
It's so crazy that I think at the end of every month, Oompa Loompas from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory should come out and tell us all the things we did wrong. Every month. Because they should wrap up the month. It's crazy. Crazy.
It's actually the Oompa Loompas are actually a really horrible story. You know that he went into Oompa Loompa land and he actually enslaved them. That's what he did.
Right.
It's not a fun. Roald Dahl. My daughter's reading all the Roald Dahl books now, right?
Yeah.
And I like the adult fiction he wrote, which is very twisted. I like it. So if you haven't Kiss and all that, if you haven't read it, Roald Dahl adult fiction, find it. A lot of short stories, but his stories aren't fun and happy stories. The Big Friendly Giant, where the Peach, Jack and the Peach or whatever.
Yes.
It's Jack and the Giant Peach. These are not. But then again, most fairy tales were pretty harsh and horrendous stories, right?
They were grim, Mickey, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, very nice. I see what you did there. But you're right, though. I like that idea of having the Oompa Loompas come on. The Oompa Loompas are here. Okay, what did we get wrong?
Because the best meme of the week that I found was there's like a stick figure dude in a hoodie poking the Illuminati, saying, "Go on, give us alien invasion. The COVID's boring." And it's gold. He's got a stick like an Australian kid growing up poking the ant's nest. Hilarious.
It just gets better. I mean, October has come and gone, and what do we have? We've got Donald and Melania Trump down with COVID-19, and what does it mean? And I listened to a lot of analyses this week, Dave.
I fell over the back of my chair. That segue was so awesome.
I know. Hi, Opa. So ultimately, it doesn't matter if he's sick or even if he dies. The Constitution makes allowances for that, right?
Yeah, they've got rules in place for this.
Yeah, there's a clear line of succession, right? It starts with Mike Pence and goes to the Speaker of the House, etc., and through the entire cabinet, in fact. Okay.
Speaker of the House, isn't that Pelosi?
Well, dude, it's in there. They're part of the thing. But there's this.
Oh my
but
God.
it's certainly governed. Yeah, no, it's governed by the Constitution, right? So there's definitely ultimately, whoever is the most senior member of the government, be it Senate, Congress, or the actual White House, will become the president. So it's not if you wipe everybody out.
Yeah, it's the mailman.
In fact, whoever's the highest-ranking official,
the mail delivery person, right?
Yeah.
I heard something really crazy, Mickey, that there was a succession, and there was the most unlikely person that they named. I can't remember. I think it was on Joe Rogan, and they mentioned he mentioned the craziest person that you could possibly ever imagine being in that we all know of, and he just stepped right in the role. But what does it mean for the debates? This is my question.
Well, they're probably not going to happen, right?
Could you imagine Pence? Pence would absolutely have a field day with Joe Biden, I think.
Yeah, look, Okay, a couple of things need to happen. So, if Trump is too sick to debate, and Pence steps in as sworn in as president, but then actually a few things have to happen. So the president can write a letter to say, yes, I'm transferring the powers temporarily to Pence, or if he's too sick to do that, then it'll just be done on his behalf.
Yes.
And Mike Pence will be sworn in temporarily.
Yeah.
Right. At least and he'll be it until Trump either comes back or until the election results are out.
Mm-hmm.
So if Trump were to die, Mike Pence will automatically inherit the presidency until such a time as when the election is determined. And now the question here is, would the Republican Party nominate Pence? Well, they would be stupid not to, because we're in the middle of a campaign. So Mike Pence might win the election, but he might not be the Republican nominee, if you know what I mean. If they didn't want, of course they are. Of course they're going to make him the nominee, right? But so that's a fairly clear-cut thing of what's going to happen there. It's a little bit more complicated with Joe Biden. If he was going to get sick or die, then they probably transferred. And I forget her name. I do apologize. To his running mate. Most likely.
That's right. Yes.
But again, these are unprecedented times. Interestingly enough, though, forget all of that for a second here. I don't think Donald Trump is going to relinquish power. And then again, based on what we just discussed around the potential election fraud, et cetera, that could go on. And he's now in court. And you know what? He
would definitely sit in court. Yeah.
But he's well within his rights to do so.
Yeah.
And Al Gore took Bush Jr.
That's right.
to court,
rightfully.
And absolutely. We shouldn't paint Trump in the picture. Oh, he's not going to leave. He's a dictator. No. He's well within his legal rights. To go to court.
Was the extreme left and talking about that.
Yeah.
That we'll have to overthrow him. It was so rebellious, Mekki, the talk.
Yeah.
That it was almost like, okay, well, let's just have a civil war over it.
Yeah, I know, but
it was too extreme.
So Joe Biden, look, this election, there are no winners, but
he watered it down somewhat in the debate when he was asked.
Yeah, but Joe Biden said, Donald Trump, he mismanaged the coronavirus crisis, blah 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 blah. But when Donald Trump shut down travel, especially with China, everyone was, you're a xenophobe. We shouldn't, we harm the economy and harm our relationship with China. So it's flip-flopping, right? You can't have it both ways. You have to have a stance. You take that stance, right? If you say, okay, well, he should have shut it down harder, then he should support it when he shut down the travel with China. He should have done it. That's what you do. That's the largest.
The largest ever food order from China to the US. Their order was they requested the US to send them as much food as possible. The largest one occurred in the last 4 weeks because they're having a crisis. It's not like the two countries there's a wall between them that's impenetrable. Trade still goes on. This rhetoric is over the wall.
We have to think of this the way Plato described the world. Everything is shadows on the wall. Yeah. And we are watching the shadows on the wall. What we're seeing is in the news media, we see this thing being played out tit for tat with Australia, with America, with China. Oh, we're going to expel your diplomat from here, and now we're going to expel your diplomat from there, and we're going to stop all the imports of barley, and then we're going to stop all the imports of wine, and blah, 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 blah.
It's like three friends reading a screenplay in a basement next to a warm fire, drinking beer or wine.
That's it. I will start getting worried, Dave, and I've said this before, when China stops importing Australian pork and American rice.
Yeah.
Okay? And when that happens, I'm going to start building a bunker.
You'll say game on. That's the message right there.
But everything else is theatrics. Okay? Positioning for power, shuffling, this and that. You know, I mean, they had fisticuffs at the Indian-Chinese border in the Himalayas.
That's right.
People got
well,
killed,
they had
fisticuffs.
metal star pickets with welded on bits, and there's been shots fired, Mickey, shots fired now, and both sides are building camps.
Oh my, it's crazy. It's all kinds of nuts. But okay, so but to be clear, right? It's posturing. If really America and China and or whoever is on a war footing and actually barreling down that way, we see the except for the prime diplomat, all diplomatic staff will be withdrawn from either country. They may leave a token prime diplomat in there just to keep the lines of communication open. That might happen. They will stop all trade. They will stop all communications, right? Just in case, because you never know what goes up. You don't know. I mean, as long as there's communication and trade, information goes in and out.
That's right.
If you are starting to amass your troops and you go on a war footing and you start, making plans to invade or bomb or whatever it might be,
it's sort of life as normal until the first bomb's dropped or fired.
Okay. Of course. Yeah, that's right. So, but the information cannot be allowed to leak out. So, are we seeing the demise of the United States as a great power? And the answer to that is unequivocally, in my opinion, yes. We're seeing the demise, but it's no different to what happened with
It's
Great
just
Britain.
the competition has risen.
Yeah.
That's what I see right now.
But look at pre World War One.
Yes.
The world. Pre World War One, we had Russia.
Yeah.
We had France.
Yeah.
We had the United Kingdom, Great Britain, right? So the French, the Spanish to some extent. So these were
Each
the great
of them had
powers.
been their own power at some point.
100%. And Germany was on the rise.
Knights at the table, Mickey.
Yeah, exactly. And Germany united in the 1850s, 1860s, right? There was just before that there were many German nations, and they started, industry. They had industry. They started to rise. They had culture and military, and more importantly, they had a navy that could start to rival the navy of Great Britain.
Yeah.
And we're seeing something similar here. But before that, the Spanish were ruling the world.
That's
the Spanish ruled the seas, right? But
They
then
owned a sea.
a storm destroyed the Armada.
Yep.
And guess what? Now we have Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he didn't do anything. He just survived the storm. Good for him. That's what happened. And this is really what happened. So you have nations rise, and then you have nations fall. The Roman Empire was there for 1,000 years. The Ottoman Empire was there for 600 years.
Yeah.
Right? They ruled all the way to Vienna. From Vienna all the way into Africa, Northern Africa, into Asia. That was the Ottoman Empire, right?
I think we have like a quickening of the topmost position. I think we're going to see the shorter term for that. It's only been 100 years or that, right? Not even that. Maybe 60 years. America wasn't the top until maybe the Cold War.
Well, it didn't start until after World War II, and then America didn't become the single global power until the fall of the wall in the late 80s, early 90s, with the collapse. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, right? Because there was the
second place disappeared.
Yeah, correct. And so again, we have to remember the Soviet Union was a powerful entity. It's gone, right? And America was left as the sole power, and then you saw other powers rising. You saw the rise of China. You saw economically, you saw the rise of Japan, and you saw a recovering Russia rising as well. You saw the Europeans becoming a lot more aware of their power and rising. Brazil, I mean, India not so much because India's got too many internal problems, right?
Yeah.
But we should not think that we live in a static world, Dave. We don't live in a static world. We live in a world that's constantly in flux, and certainly when it comes to politics. I mean, America's time came and went, right? And there's the music. This is Listener Funded Radio. Please do donate if you can, and come back after this very, very, very short break, everybody.
No dramas. Take care to donate in a break.